Hello gamers, Myke Mullis here for the original Next Level Gaming. Welcome to another Atari VCS video. Today we're going to look at the controllers. I've been putting the Atari VCS through its paces. Got it set up, played some games, which I haven't shown you yet, but I'm going to. And, more importantly for what I wanted the VCS for, I plugged in an external drive, running Windows 10, running RetroArch, and playing games on it. In fact, something I might show you later on, I'm actually running, ready for this? I'm running Windows 98 in DOSBox in RetroArch in Windows 10 on an external drive on the Atari VCS. Yeah, I'm like that. Anyway, I wanted to go through the controllers today. So the Onyx bundle, which I got, has two controllers on it, which I just showed you. The modern controller and the classic controller. The classic controller I'm going to go through in a bit more depth in this video because, to be honest, looking at the modern controller, if you've played an Xbox controller in the last decade, you've pretty much played with this modern controller. If you notice, it actually looks a lot more like an Xbox Series S or X controller than any of the others, but you see the asymmetrical sticks, you see the lettered buttons, you see the triggers and the buttons on the top. It's pretty much the same. If you've held an Xbox controller, you've held this one. Though I will say, I do like the rounded D-pad. It does, like the other controller, and I showed this in the first video, this does have a micro USB port on it. So does the classic controller. And while at the first I didn't understand why that over USB-C, it actually hasn't been an issue. It comes with a fairly long USB micro cable, and while I'm not a fan of wired controllers, and I really don't like having controller cables go all the way across my living room to my TV, the problem with this when I'm running RetroArch, and it's not a problem with the controller, it's a problem with Windows 10. When you're running this Bluetooth, which it will pick up, the triggers don't work. For some reason, Windows 10 does not detect the bottom triggers on this controller. So I have to plug it in order for the controller to work fully. And I use this controller for RetroArch because it's perfect for all my emulation purposes. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about this controller. What I want to concentrate on is the classic controller. Now the classic controller is exactly as it's described. It looks a lot like an Atari 2600 controller. In fact, while there isn't the orange tinge around the controller at the moment, I'll show you something neat. In my first video, I described a concern that I had that the controller is kind of flimsy. The build on this controller is not as good as the build on the modern controller. And I feel like the stick is a little flimsy. But there is something cool about this controller that I'm going to show you, and we're going to do some gameplay in just a minute. I do want to hit the button here, so let me go over it real quick. Has, of course, the stick in the middle, and it is, like I said, it's very loose. The Atari 2600 stick was also very loose, so this could just be them trying to emulate the feel as well as the design. Still have concerns, and we're going to look at those in a bit. It has two buttons, whereas the original Atari 2600 controller had one. This does have two. For the more modern games on the VCS, so you've got one up here, you got one here. Also has a menu button and a back button, and then the pairing button, and the on-off button. I'm going to hit the on-off button real quick. It's going to attempt to pair to whatever Bluetooth you are currently paired to. In this case, it's looking for my Atari VCS. My VCS is not on, so it's not going to find it. It's just going to blink. But when you move the stick, then you get that orange, the little orange bit that you'd see on a 2600 controller is kind of just painted on. And when you hit the button, you see that it is that. It doesn't do anything here. So this is more or less just an emulation of the older controllers. But I'm wondering how it feels. there's one other cool feature on this controller that we're going to take a close look at in the gameplay video to come. I was wondering in the original video why the stick spun like this. Well, it turns out this is a spinner. So for arcade games like Tempest, Warlord, Super Breakout, and Major Havoc, as well as Atari 2600 and games like that on the VCS that are emulated that might use the old paddle controller, this works for it, and we're going to see that in a minute. Okay, so again, the modern controller, I'm not really going to do any gameplay here because you guys have all seen that. So it's time to look closely at this controller. Let's do some gameplay. I'm going to show you what it's like, and then we'll come back for some final thoughts. Alright, so we're going to hit the Atari VCS Vault first. The Atari VCS Vault is a free game that comes with the VCS and has a number of arcade and Atari 2600 games built into it. Now, I'm very curious about the spinner, so we're going to go right into the spinner games. And I'm going to start with one of my favorites, Tempest. So right off the bat, the spinner feels very responsive. Even little tweaks left and right are picked up very nicely in these games. You'll see as I'm going through the spinner games that I'm not having any kind of lag issue, although sometimes there is a little bit of extra sensitivity, but it's nothing that is a game breaker by any stretch of the imagination. I'm actually impressed with this. So let's play some spinner games. We're going to see some Tempest, some Warlords, and a couple of Atari 2600 games like Breakout and Circus Atari. I have to try a couple of the newer games. So let's fire up Tempest 4000. The sequel, I guess, to one of my favorite Atari Jaguar games, Tempest 2000. I love this music, and I love the way this game plays. And of course, it's part of the Tempest series. In a future video, I'm going to go a little more in-depth into Tempest, Tempest 2000, Tempest 4000, and I'll even show you the Atari 2600 version as well. Let's take a quick look at Gravatar Recharged. This is a game I'm not as familiar with, but we're going to also do a video on this very soon as part of the Recharge series. So now that we've done a bunch of spinner games, let's try the stick itself. The stick is the one piece of this controller that I'm still concerned about with the build quality. So let's do some Centipede, some Asteroids, and once again we'll come back and do some 2600 games, Missile Command and Radar Lock. I am impressed with the stick as far as its controls go. Still a little flimsy, but I like it. I also did not mention at the beginning, or in the last video that I did, that this controller has rumble in it. Yep, it actually does rumble in my hands, even over Bluetooth. Very cool. So the jury is still out for me on the classic controller, but I do recognize that it's got some neat features on it. The spinning stick is really cool, and it works fairly well. It's not perfect, but it works well enough that it made playing Tempest and Breakout and Warlords and games like that really fun. The stick, once again, still, and it could just be that's how it's designed, it's still a little flimsy. So I'm hoping that it's not going to break on me. Everything else about the stick is actually surprisingly pretty good, a little bit better than I thought it would be. So that's a great, it's a great little controller as long as it lasts. So thank you for checking out this latest Atari VCS video. As always, if you like what you see here and you want to see more, click that subscribe button and click like. That really helps our channel. And if you click subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way, next time that we're on, you can see it for yourself and come check us out live. In fact, come check us out on Tuesday nights at 9:30 p.m. for the NLG show with myself, Peter Hutink, and Chris Williams. We talk about retro games, modern games, and everything in between. As well, if you're seeing this early, that's because you are a Friend of NLG channel member. We love our channel members. We love everybody. But for our channel members, you get early access to these videos, plus special emojis for our live streams. It's only $2 a month, and everything that we get goes right back into the channel in the form of things like this, giveaways to our great channel members and our fans, and more. Click the join button. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the next video, and as always, play on, gamers.